I stood outside my parents' house with a bag in my hand. My mother's voice still echoed in my ears. Get out, and never come back. I looked at that old 2-story house, the same house I had been paying the mortgage on for 7 years. $117,600. That was how much I had given them. And this was my reward. But here is the thing. A few weeks later, everything changed. And my answer shut them all down. Before I begin this story, let me know in the comments where you are watching from today. If you have ever felt like you gave everything to your family but still were not good enough, hit that like button right now. And if you are new here, subscribe to this channel so you do not miss what happens next. Trust me, you will want to hear how this ends. I grew up in a small town outside Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Our family had 4 people. My father Harold, my mother Diane, me and my younger sister Sophie. She was 5 years younger than me. My father worked as an electrician. My mother had a part-time job doing administrative work at a local clinic. We were not rich, but we were not poor either. We were somewhere in the middle, always trying to keep our heads above water. When I was 10 years old, my parents bought our house. It was an old 2-story place with a basement and a small backyard. They took out a 30-year mortgage to afford it. I remember my father signing the papers at the kitchen table. He looked proud but also worried. That worry never really went away. Growing up, I noticed something that I did not fully understand until much later. My mother always treated Sophie differently than she treated me. Sophie got new clothes for school. I wore hand-me-downs from my cousin. Sophie got dance lessons. I was told we could not afford extracurricular activities. When I asked my mother why, she would say the same thing every time. You are a boy, Jade. Boys need to be strong and independent. Girls need to be protected and taken care of. I believed her. I thought that was just how families worked, so I never complained. I just accepted it. When I turned 18, I enrolled in community college. I wanted to study business management, but I also had to work. I got a job waiting tables at a restaurant 4 nights a week. On weekends, I did delivery driving for extra cash. Between classes and work, I barely had time to sleep. But I was determined to build a better life for myself. Then, everything changed when I was 20 years old. My father had an accident at work. He fell from a ladder and injured his back. The doctor said he would never be able to do heavy labor again. Just like that, our family's income was cut in half. The bills started piling up. The mortgage payment was $1,400 every month. My mother's part-time salary could not cover it. My father received some disability payments, but it was not enough. After a few months, the bank sent a warning letter. They said if we missed 2 more payments, they would start foreclosure proceedings. I remember the night my parents sat at the kitchen table staring at that letter. My mother was crying. My father looked defeated. Sophie was in her room, probably on her phone, not even aware of what was happening. I stood in the doorway and made a decision that would shape the next 7 years of my life. I said, let me pay the mortgage. I will cover it every month. My father shook his head. No, Jade. That is too much. You are just a kid. But I insisted. I told him I was the son of this family. It was my responsibility to help. My mother looked up at me with tears in her eyes. She said, we will never forget this, Jade. We will always be grateful. Those words meant everything to me at the time. I dropped out of community college the next semester. I needed to work full-time to make enough money. I got a job at a shipping company starting in the warehouse. The work was hard. I loaded and unloaded trucks for 10 hours a day, but the pay was decent, and I could make the mortgage payment with some left over for my own rent. I found a small 1-bedroom apartment about 20 minutes from my parents' house. It was nothing fancy, just 4 walls, a bathroom, and a tiny kitchen. But it was mine, and every month without fail I transferred $1,400 to my parents' account. 7 years passed. I worked my way up at the shipping company. I started as a warehouse worker, then became a shift supervisor, and eventually got promoted to shift manager. My salary increased over the years, but my lifestyle did not change much. I still lived in that same small apartment. I still drove the same used car I bought when I was 21. I saved what I could, but most of my extra money went to my family. During those 7 years, I did some math. $1,400 times 12 months times 7 years. That came out to $117,600. I never asked for any of it back. I never expected anything in return except maybe a little appreciation. But here is what else happened during those 7 years. Sophie graduated from high school. My parents paid for her entire college education, 4 years at a state university. Tuition, room and board, books, spending money, all of it. When she graduated, they bought her a brand new car as a gift. A shiny little sedan that cost about $25,000. Sophie moved back home after college. She said she needed time to figure out her career, so she lived with my parents rent-free. She did not pay for groceries. She did not pay any bills. She just existed in that house like a permanent guest. Meanwhile, I kept sending money every month. And every time I visited, the first thing my mother asked was, "Did you send the payment this month?" Not, "How are you doing?" Not, "Are you eating well?" Not, "Have you met anyone special?" Just, "Did you send the money?" I started to feel less like a son and more like an ATM machine. By the time I turned 32, something shifted inside me. I had just received a big promotion at work. I was now a regional manager overseeing operations at 3 different facilities. My salary had increased significantly. For the first time in my adult life, I had real financial breathing room. I started thinking about my future. I wanted to buy my own place. A real house, not just a tiny apartment. I wanted to build equity for myself instead of paying rent that went nowhere. And I realized that the mortgage on my parents' house was almost paid off anyway. Only about 2 years of payments remained. It seemed like the right time to start transitioning out of that responsibility. I decided to tell my parents in person. I thought they would understand. I thought they might even be happy for me. On a Saturday evening in October, I drove to their house for dinner. When I arrived, I saw Sophie's car in the driveway. She had recently broken up with her boyfriend and was apparently going through a difficult time. She had been living at home for 3 years at that point. We sat down for dinner. My mother had made pot roast, my father's favorite. The conversation was light at first. Sophie talked about some drama with her friends. My father mentioned a football game he had watched. My mother complained about a coworker at her part-time job. Then I decided to share my news. I said, "I have something to tell everyone. I got promoted at work. I am now a regional manager." My father nodded and said, "That is good, son. Congratulations." I waited for more. A hug maybe. A toast. Something. But my mother just looked at me with a calculating expression. Then she said something that made my stomach drop. "So if you are making more money now, you can increase your monthly contribution, right? Sophie has been struggling lately. She needs some financial help." I stared at her. I could not believe what I was hearing. I said, "Actually, I was thinking the opposite. The mortgage is almost paid off. I am planning to buy my own house soon. I need to start saving more for myself." My mother's face changed instantly. The warmth disappeared. Her eyes turned cold. She said, "That is very selfish of you, Jade. Your sister needs help. Family helps family." I tried to stay calm. I said, "Mom, I have been helping this family for 7 years. I have paid over $100,000 toward this house. I think I have done my part." Sophie jumped in. She said, "You always do this. You always bring up money like you are some kind of hero. It is so annoying." My mother nodded in agreement. She said, "Exactly. A good son does not keep score. A good son just helps without expecting anything in return." I felt something crack inside my chest. I said, "Mom, what have I done wrong? I have given everything I could." My mother started listing things. She said, "You never finished college. You do not have a girlfriend. You live alone in that depressing little apartment. You have not given me any grandchildren. Honestly, Jade, you have not given me much to be proud of." I looked at my father. He was staring at his plate, pushing food around with his fork. He said nothing. He did not defend me. He did not even look at me. I stood up from the table. My hands were shaking. I said, "I think I should leave." I walked toward the front door. I thought maybe my mother would apologize. Maybe she would realize she had gone too far. Instead, she followed me and said something I will never forget. She yelled, "Get out and never come back. You are not welcome here anymore." I turned around. Sophie was standing behind my mother with her arms crossed, a small smile on her face. My father remained in the kitchen, his back turned to me. I looked at my mother for a long moment. I thought about the 7 years I had sacrificed, the college education I gave up, the vacations I never took, the life I put on hold to keep that roof over their heads, and I made a decision. I said, "Okay, Mom, I understand." I walked out the door, got in my car, and drove home. I did not cry. I did not call anyone. I just sat in my dark apartment for the rest of the night thinking. The next morning I called my bank. I canceled the automatic transfer for the mortgage payment. Then I blocked my mother's phone number. I blocked Sophie's number too. The only number I kept was my father's, just in case of a real emergency. 3 weeks passed. They were strange weeks, quiet, peaceful in a way I had not experienced in years. Without that $1,400 payment going out every month, I suddenly had money to spare. I started looking at houses online. I found a nice 2-bedroom condo about 15 minutes from my office. It was in a good neighborhood with a small gym and a pool. At work, things were going well. My new responsibilities kept me busy, which was a good distraction. I made friends with a coworker named Nathan. He was about my age, recently divorced, and looking to rebuild his social life. We started grabbing lunch together, then going to happy hour on Fridays. He introduced me to his group of friends. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I had a life outside of work and family obligations. One evening I did something I had not done in years. I cooked myself a real dinner, not just microwaved leftovers or takeout. I made pasta with homemade sauce, garlic bread, and a salad. I sat at my small table and ate slowly, actually tasting the food. It sounds silly, but it felt like a victory. I also called my grandmother. She was my mother's mother, but she was nothing like my mother. Grandma Rose was 82 years old and still sharp as a tack. She lived alone in a farmhouse about 2 hours away. I tried to visit her a few times a year, but work had kept me busy lately. When I told her what happened, she was not surprised. She said, "Jade, your mother has always been this way. Even when she was a little girl, she played favorites. She always thought daughters were more valuable than sons. I tried to teach her differently, but some lessons do not stick." I asked her if I had done the right thing by leaving. She said, "You did not leave, sweetheart. They pushed you out. There is a difference. And you have every right to protect yourself." Those words meant more to me than she probably knew. Then on a Thursday night, my phone rang. It was my father's number. I hesitated for a moment, then answered. His voice sounded tired. He said, "Jade, can we talk?" I said, "Sure, Dad. What is it?" He paused for a long time. Then he said, "Why did you stop paying the mortgage?" I almost laughed. After everything that happened, that was his first question. Not "How are you?" Not "I am sorry." Just "Why did you stop paying?" I said, "Mom told me to get out and never come back. I am just doing what she asked." More silence. Then he said, "The bank sent us a letter. We are 2 months behind. They are threatening foreclosure." I said, "I know, Dad. But that is not my problem anymore." He tried a different approach. He said, "Jade, you are my son. Sons are supposed to help their families. It is your duty." I took a deep breath. I said, "Dad, I helped this family for 7 years. I gave you $117,600. I gave up college. I gave up my 20s. And what did I get in return?" Mom told me. "I am not welcome in my own family home." Sophie laughed when I was thrown out. "And you just stood there and said nothing." He did not respond. I continued. I said, "Did you know what Mom said to me that night?" She said, "I have not given her anything to be proud of. After everything I sacrificed. Do you think that is fair, Dad?" His voice was barely a whisper. He said, "I know. I am sorry, Jade. I should have said something." Before he could say more, I heard a commotion on his end. Someone grabbed the phone. My mother's voice came through sharp and angry. She said, "Jade, how dare you abandon your family? You ungrateful child. After everything we did for you." I heard Sophie's voice in the background chiming in on another phone. She said, "This is so typical. He only cares about himself. Mom and Dad could lose their house because of him." I waited for them to finish. Then I spoke slowly and clearly. I said, "Mom, you told me to get out and never come back. Those were your exact words. I am simply respecting your wishes." She started to interrupt, but I kept going. I said, "I am not ungrateful. I am not selfish. I gave this family $117,600 over 7 years. That is more than most people earn in 4 years of work. And what did I receive from you and Sophie? Not a single thank you. Not one time did you ask if I was okay. Not once did you acknowledge what I was doing for this family. The line went quiet. I said you want me to come back, fine. Here is what needs to happen. You apologize to me. A real apology in front of the whole family. You acknowledge what I contributed, and you treat me with basic respect going forward. If you cannot do that, then do not call me again. Nobody spoke. I added one more thing. I said I do not hate you, Mom, but I refuse to be treated like an ATM machine anymore. I am a human being. I deserve to be treated like one. Then I hung up. The weeks after that phone call were a journey. I would be lying if I said I felt great immediately. I did not. There were nights when I lay awake wondering if I had made the right choice. There were moments when I almost picked up the phone to call my mother and apologize just to make the discomfort go away, but I did not. I stayed the course. Nathan could tell something was bothering me. Over beers one Friday night, I told him the whole story. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he said something that stuck with me. He said, "You know what the hardest part of growing up is, realizing that your parents are just people. Flawed, selfish, complicated people. And sometimes loving yourself means walking away from people who cannot love you properly." A month after the phone call, I drove out to visit Grandma Rose. It was a Saturday morning in late November. The leaves had all fallen and the fields around her farmhouse were brown and bare, but her kitchen was warm and she had made apple pie. We sat on her porch, wrapped in blankets, drinking hot tea. I told her about the conversation with my parents. I told her how I felt guilty but also relieved. I told her I was not sure if I had done the right thing. She reached over and took my hand. Her skin was thin and soft, marked with age spots, but her grip was firm. She said, "Jade, let me tell you something about your mother. She has always believed that love is transactional. You give something, you get something back. But real love does not work that way. Real love is given freely without keeping score." She continued, "You gave your mother 7 years of unconditional support, and she kept score the whole time. That is not your fault. That is hers." Then she said something that broke me open. She said, "You do not need your mother's approval to know your own worth. You are a good man, Jade. You have always been a good man, and I am proud of you." I cried. Right there on her porch, I let the tears come. 7 years of suppressed emotion poured out of me. Grandma Rose just held my hand and let me grieve. 3 months after I walked out of my parents' house, I got the keys to my new condo. It was a sunny day in January. I stood in the empty living room looking out at the small balcony. The walls were white and clean. The floors were hardwood. It was not big, but it was mine. Truly mine. Paid for with my own money, not a gift from anyone. Not a burden carried for someone else, just mine. My father came to visit about a week after I moved in. He came alone. He brought a small plant as a housewarming gift. We sat in my living room on folding chairs because I had not bought furniture yet. He said, "Your mother is not ready to apologize. I do not think she knows how." I said, "I know, Dad." He said, "But I want you to know that I am sorry. I should have stood up for you. I was a coward, and I am ashamed." I looked at my father. He seemed older than I remembered, smaller somehow. The years had worn him down. I said, "I forgive you, Dad. But things cannot go back to the way they were. I am not going to pretend everything is fine when it is not." He nodded. He said, "I understand." We sat in silence for a while. It was not comfortable, but it was not hostile either. It was just two people trying to figure out a new normal. Before he left, he hugged me. It was awkward and brief, but it was something. Looking back now, I have learned some important lessons from this experience. Being a good son does not mean being a doormat. You can love your family and still have boundaries. In fact, boundaries are a form of love. They protect everyone involved. I also learned that some people will never see your value no matter how much you give them, and that is okay. Your worth is not determined by their blindness. Your worth is inherent. It exists whether or not anyone acknowledges it. Most importantly, I learned that walking away is sometimes the bravest thing you can do. It is not giving up. It is not abandoning your family. It is simply refusing to participate in your own mistreatment. I do not know if my mother will ever truly apologize. Maybe she will. Maybe she will not. But my peace no longer depends on her decision. I have learned to find peace within myself, and that I believe is the greatest victory of all. So if you are out there watching this and you feel trapped in a similar situation, let me tell you this. You are not alone. You are not crazy. And you are not wrong for wanting to be treated with respect. Sometimes the people who are supposed to love us unconditionally are the ones who hurt us the most. And sometimes the only way forward is to step back. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to set boundaries with your family? Have you ever walked away from people who were supposed to love you? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might help someone else who is going through the same thing. If this story touched your heart, please give it a like. It helps more people find this channel. And if you are not subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you do not miss any of my future stories. Thank you so much for watching and for being part of this community. I wish you peace, strength, and the courage to know your own worth. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next one.